So everyone and their uncle is talking about the Halos, and this has nothing to do with Shohei Ohtani exiting up I-5 to Chavez Ravine, the Angels' alleged rivals, the Dodgers. But this is quite the story. So the Angels, you probably don't know who this guy is because why would you? He's not very good. His name is Anthony Rendon. He's a third baseman for the Angels, which is a baseball team that plays in Southern California, not in Los Angeles, but they have identity issues, so they say they are in Los Angeles. So Anthony Rendon was asked as he reported to spring training camp, position players reporting. When you think of spring training, you think of the excitement, right? The start of a new year and all that. So there's Anthony Rendon saying that baseball has, quote, never been a top priority to me, and that the only reason he plays the sport, well, take a listen.
That's never been a top priority for me. This is a job, so I do this to make a living. My faith, my family come first before this job. So if those things come before it, I'm leaving.
Is it a priority?
Oh, it's a priority for sure. This is my job. I'm here, aren't I?
Do you want to be here?
I don't want to talk to you guys at 7 in the morning or whatever time it is. So.
Do you want to like be here playing baseball?
I have answered your question, so why do you keep picking at it?
Oh, yeah, you technically answered it.
Thank you.
Oh, my. Does that not sum up the modern professional sports world that we're living in today? Does that attitude not sum up the era that we're in? Wow. All right, so let us discuss.
Really work here.
The question, Anthony Rendon, the third baseman there in Anaheim, says that baseball has never been his top priority. It's just a job. And how should the Angels handle this? How should the Angels handle this? So I've got carpet, warp speed, and cream puff. And we will combine all of these things together, and we are going to make popcorn, which has more pop to it than Anthony Rendon and the Angels in the year 2024. So number one. The Angels claim to play at the Big A. I say instead of the Big A, they should say it's the Big Top, because Artie Moreno continues to run a bit of a circus there in Anaheim, and so much for the common sense. The funny thing about this, I was talking in the hallways here. I was reminiscing with the great Mike Harmon. We were talking about in the old days, we had a lot of athletes that have run through Fox Sports Radio, and you'd be shocked how many of them actually didn't like the sport they played. They just happened to be good at it. But they weren't douchebags. They didn't announce that they didn't like the sport that they played. But on some level, you respect the honesty of Anthony Rendon, and then you wonder and question what the heck's going on in that Angels organization, right? The spring training, Artie Moreno, this guy, he can't get out of his own way. The Angels owner. So spring training, sense of renewed optimism and the stirring excitement that comes with the start of a new baseball season. And then you've got Anthony Rendon in the cartoon bubble above my head. He's got a Molotov cocktail, and he's throwing it into the Angels clubhouse. He's like, here, boom, kaboom. But ultimately, I'm not going to even blame Anthony Rendon because he said this stuff in the past. I remember when he signed with the Angels after that out-of-body playoff experience with the Nationals. And he signed with the Angels, and I had brought up these quotes. And at the time, Koopa Loop, my producer, was a Angel fan. He's no longer an Angel fan. But kind of dismissed the quotes and all that. But he said almost identically the same thing when he was playing for the Washington Nationals back in the day. It's a guy that just does not like playing baseball, which of all the sports, you would say is the hardest to get to that level and not enjoy it. Football, you get beat up and all that, but you play once a week and you practice, and the football practice is pretty light. Basketball, it's not that big a grind, but baseball every day, 162 bleeping games. The NBA plays half that, and the players bitch and moan nonstop. But here's Anthony Rendon playing 162 games. He's been in the big leagues. He's fully vested in the MLB retirement fund. So he's got all that. And the Angels front office there, and I know they've changed names since Rendon signed in Anaheim, but they can get together and they can form a circle. Okay, they can form a circle and they can pass out blow pops because they are suckers. They are absolute suckers. They knew they weren't getting Mr. Sunshine. He definitely has that attitude, Anthony Rendon, but this is the textbook definition of a carpetbagger. Anthony Rendon is a carpetbagger. He's also a grifter. He is. And the Angels fell for it. He's treating a job that pays him $245 million to be worshipped and have people kiss his ass, fanboys and brown nosers. He's treating that job like he's been at the DMV for 25 years. He's like, oh, crap. Or, he's cleaning toilets. In fact, we got guys that clean toilets on this show that have a better outlook on life than this jabroni, Anthony Rendon. It's ridiculous. $245 million. He's a slave to the batter's box in Anaheim. All right, now, page 2. Big news day for the Halos. Big news day for the Halos. Now, Mike Trout, he had some things to say. Mike Trout said that he has no desire to be traded, but there is a caveat on this. Now, Trout, talking to the media at Angels Spring Training Camp, said that he has encouraged the Angels owner, Artie Moreno, to sign at least one of the remaining big money free agents that are out there. I think we have a little bit of Mike Trout, do we? All right, here's a little taste of Mike Trout.
I think the biggest thing right now is I think the easy way out is just ask for a trade. There might be a time, maybe. I really haven't thought about this, but when I signed that contract, I'm loyal. I want to win the championship here. The overall picture of winning a championship or getting to the playoffs here is bigger satisfaction bailing out and just taking the easy way out. So I think that's been my mindset. Maybe down the road if some things change, but that's been my mindset ever since the trade speculations, came up.
Okay, so Mike Trout, who then checked the Doppler forecast and saw there was an atmospheric river heading towards Arizona, so he freaked out. But Mike Trout says, as you heard, he says a trade from the Angels would be the easy way out. Those are his words, not mine. Where does this subplot go? Where does the Mike Trout subplot go? I'm glad you asked. So it goes at warp speed right around mid-May. I've got my crystal ball right around mid-May. And here's what I see. Mike Trout, the Angels, right around 500, mediocre baseball. And ta-da! Mike Trout pops up on all the clickbait. Clickety-click at warp speed. Clickety-click. And he did leave a key phrase in that quote, Mike Trout, which vacates the, hey, that would be the easy way out, because Trout also said there might be a time. There might be. Now, might's a weasel word. He also tossed maybe in there, so 2 weasel words. But that's not no, never, I'm not leaving. That's might and maybe. Might and maybe is what he said. So as soon as the Angels are eliminated, which is probably when they leave Arizona and end spring training camp, you'll hear Mike Trout's name popping up for the Phillies. It's a homecoming. Mike Trout going back to the Delaware Valley. Woo! The Yankees, if Juan Soto, it appears he's not going to stay there. More on that later. Toronto. The Dodgers will come up again because they've got all these minor league players. The Giants, the Red Sox, the usual suspects will be tossed out. All right, now, final point. We head somewhere else out of the Angels clubhouse. We'll stay in Arizona, though. I think Peoria, I believe, is where the Padres spring training camp is. I'm old enough to remember when the Padres had a super team, and then they had to play the games. And the only thing super about that team was how underachieving they were in San Diego. Well, interesting news out of the Padre camp involving the X-Man. The shortstop, ex-Red Sox, Xander Bogaerts. Remember him? Now, I was worried when Mookie Betts left the Dodgers that he would be a guy that was a fraud and a product of playing at Fenway Park. And Mookie's been okay unless you play October baseball and then he vanishes. But Xander Bogaerts has been a guy, a small sample size, but he's been a hot mess in San Diego. So much so, the Padres announced with their new manager, Mike Schlitt, that they are moving Xander Bogaerts to second base. They're moving him from shortstop to second base 1 year after the Padres gave this guy the 9th biggest contract in the history of the sport, plausibly to be a shortstop. The Padres have already tossed in the sponge, and they've said, we're good. We're good. You go play second base. Okay, you go play second base. Knock yourself out. So does it make sense? Does it make sense that the Padres are moving Xander Bogaerts out of shortstop? It only makes sense if you're doing a vaudevillian Three Stooges comedy bit where you throw cream puffs into the eyeballs of whoever you're arguing with. That's it. That's all. Right? Xander Bogaerts was paid under the premise that he was a premium item. A shortstop, much more important than the second baseman. We all know that. So, you know anything about baseball, you know the shortstop is more important than second base. It's basic stuff. And now after a year, 1 year in San Diego, they've said, you know what? You were ranked like 17th out of 30 shortstops last year, according to the nerds. That's not good enough. So we're going to pull the plug. We're going to say bye-bye. Get out of here. And as a second baseman, with that contract, even if Xander Bogaerts produces, he's an eyesore. He's an eyesore. He just is. It's a blot on the landscape there for the Pod Squad. The contract becoming a monstrosity only in year 2, replaced by Ha-Sung Kim, the defensive specialist, the shortstop there, who will take over full-time.